sort of a revelation that I had as I became an adult and started working, especially in the film industry. Like you have this fantasy that it's like people in business suits being very like stuffy and boring and proper. But then I walk into like these effect shops to work, and it's all like dick and fart jokes, and like you realize that people aren't, like, a lot of people just don't grow up.
Many moons ago, a nameless evil was imprisoned in a place far beyond reach.
Hurry up!
If he were ever to be released, it would spell certain doom for all existence.
Hello.
Hi, Steve. How are you doing? You all right?
How you doing, man?
So thanks very much for speaking to me. I know you're very busy during the week now, so I appreciate you speaking to me for a little bit now.
Oh, no problem, man. I welcome the opportunity to chat and not have to work.
Mom, Dad, I want you to meet Psycho Goreman, or PG for short.
I will bathe in your blood.
So first of all, yeah, congratulations on the movie. It's fantastic. I loved it to bits. It's very you, but I mean, it's very you, but it's very different to kind of the previous stuff that you've done, like The Void and other things that you've worked on previously. It felt like it was something that you'd kind of been nurturing for a long time, especially the fact that the kids were kind of very not 2020, very kind of 80s, 90s. Is this something that you kind of wanted to get out of your system, kind of showing what you were like as a kid when you were growing up, maybe?
Well, there's a specific experience that I had as a kid that I think a lot of people growing up in the video store age had, which was being a kid and watching movies that were maybe a little too intense for your age group. I have very distinct memories of watching Terminator 2 as a kid and having trouble reconciling like the cool sci-fi stuff that I liked with the horrifying violence that scared me. So that in my head as a kid always was like, that was my idea of like, that's what an adult movie is it's mashing like fun Saturday morning cartoon ideas with brutal realism. And so that was something I wanted to kind of encapsulate with PG, was make like a kids movie for adults that juxtaposes like kind of fun, innocent, kind of like family adventure movie tropes with dark, brutal science fiction fantasy mythologies.
I mean, back in the 80s, it was something that was, I mean, like you said, like you watched Indiana Jones and these kind of films, and it did get really violent and gore, and it really didn't really matter that much. But it's very different nowadays. So when you were kind of coming up with the script and how to direct this film, did you have that in mind? Because it's a lot more complicated nowadays to really kind of mix the two together and make sure that they kind of reach an audience. No,
I mean, I was lucky in that the movie was independently financed, and they basically gave me free reign to make what I wanted. So it was just a case of like going where my brain and my instincts wanted the story to go. And so it was easy to do that when I found the core concept of like, well, what if this ancient evil monster is resurrected, but it's controlled by these two suburban kids? That gave me the juxtaposition of like kind of like family adventure stories with like dark fantasy action stuff. And so having that basic core concept, specifically the relationship between Mimi and PG, where it's like kind of a little crazy kid versus a big crazy monster, and exploring the parallels between those characters, it gave me a very simple through line that I knew if I always came back to that, the story would feel cohesive and not feel too all over the place. So having that simple through line allowed me to hang all the like weird like set pieces and jokey bits off of, and like have the movie still make sense, because I felt confident that like there was still like the heart of the movie, which is the relationship between PG and Mimi, was like always, it was always there and always present in the scenes, and it allowed me to be wacky, but still feel confident I was telling a cohesive story.
Go over there and wait for us to come back in the morning.
You will suffer an eternity for this.
Bye.
Mimi's a fantastic character, but that must have been really kind of rocky content to deal with, because you've got to be, obviously this film is it's not a PG film. It's, you know who it's intended for, but because the stars of the show are these kids, you've got to be careful with the humor, that make sure it's not too kind of crass, not too juvenile, if you will, but kind of to make sure that you reach the audience and make us kind of, you know, appreciate these kids and appreciate the humor that they come up with, which we do in the end. But how did you go about that? It can't have been easy.
I mean, I think the key is to not set out with the idea that you're making a comedy necessarily, even though the movie is very funny to me, and yes, there's tons of humor, but like I would always approach things from the heart more than anything, and having the character interactions feel genuine, even if they're saying like the dumbest shit imaginable. And so yeah, just like maintaining those core relationships with the characters and having the actors, like, even in their deliveries, like also have it feel like it's coming from a genuine place. Because I think that's what works about a character like Mimi, is like you need to believe the stuff she's saying, even if it's totally crazy and off the wall. Because that to me is like a key element to growing up that I think a lot of movies don't address, is like when you're a kid, you live in your own weird little world. And it can be very abrasive to people on the outside looking in. And so I wanted to show that. I wanted a character that was like weird, but like interesting, because you kind of like want to figure out like what is her thought process on everything, like why is she the way that she is, and not have the kids just be wide-eyed innocents, which is a thing that I'm really sick of.
Yeah.
It's not interesting to me, and I feel like to have a character that's as engaging as our title monster character, as PG, is you needed somebody with a personality as big as his. And so drawing that parallel between the two is really what makes the story work, is making Mimi as crazy as PG is, just in her own way. Like in her small town suburban way, she is just as evil a tyrant as PG is. And so I think staying true to that concept helped make a lot of the humor work, because it made the interactions feel more genuine. It was a big concern going into this movie, was that we wouldn't find kid actors that could like deliver on the promise of the script and play these characters and not only be convincing but still be charming, because I mean on the page Mimi is very abrasive, and so for Nita to be able to play her with such humanity and like at times like be abrasive at the right times but be vulnerable at other times, really speaks to like how talented she is as an actor. And I say that about like, well, the whole cast, but also like the kids in the movie, I think we're able to give really genuine performances, even though the movie is so absurd and off the wall. Like there's very grounded moments in the like ridiculous scenarios that I throw at them.
Yeah, definitely. And then on the other side of the spectrum, we've got the parents who come across as more like kids than the actual kids themselves, and very naive. Was that just for the humor, or was there something deeper rooted there that you wanted to kind of, did you have an agenda there to explain something about, I don't know, maybe when you were growing up or how parents are nowadays or something?
Oh no, it was definitely not like referencing my parents, who are fantastic parents and were not juvenile like that at all. Like they were very much a great role model for me as a kid, in how like responsible they were as adults, as functioning adults. So I just liked the idea, the like dysfunctional humor of having specifically the dad just be like not a functioning adult, because it was sort of a revelation that I had as I became an adult and started working, especially in the film industry. Like you have this fantasy that it's like people in business suits being very like stuffy and boring and proper. But then I walk into like these effect shops to work and it's all like dick and fart jokes. And like you realize that people aren't, like, a lot of people just don't grow up. And so I liked that idea, exploring that idea with the parents, specifically with the dad, Greg. Like how it's just how as you age, it sinks from being like charming and cute as a kid into just being like pathetic. And I guess I just like pathetic characters. I find them very charming and sympathetic because I feel like it's like this like quicksand that is life that we're all sinking into in different ways. Like some people sink faster than others, and with a character like that, I just want to help him and I just want him to get better. So I liked exploring that character, and Adam's performance really like gave it the personality that it needed.
What did you three maniacs get up to?
This is getting a little weird.
This sick game must come to an end.
The film wouldn't be what it is if it wasn't for you growing up when you're cutting your teeth in the industry and in special effects. And when I was speaking to Matt the other day about not just about his, but all the effects and all these contraptions that you came with, he was just amazed. I mean, he just couldn't get a grip around how all these, especially when in the forest fight, when they turned up and he said there was all these different, like one in a robot and all these different characters. He couldn't even get his head around where you came up with all these ideas. Where did they all come from? I mean, it feels very kind of 80s, but I don't know. It's very, very unique. Every single character.
I mean, my intention with all the scenes with tons of creatures in this movie was to evoke the feeling that I had watching Star Wars, specifically in Empire Strikes Back, when you see the lineup of bounty hunters. I feel like we all had that like feeling of like, I want to know what's up with those guys, even though they're on screen for like 10 seconds or something. It's like just such a unique roster of like villains to just show and then cut to something else. And I wanted to evoke that feeling because I don't feel like enough stuff nowadays does that, where it's like teasing a bigger world.
Yeah.
But as far as like the actual like coming up with all of these characters, it was really easy for me. Like I love making monsters and designing monsters. So like to just come up with the most random assortment was maybe the easiest part of this movie for me, because it was easy to just come up with like an initial hook of like, well, what if one guy was a trash can full of body parts? And like the key also is to like commit to the stupid idea. Whereas I think in modern creature design, there's so many roundtable discussions of like what a thing should be that it gets distilled down to just the same thing every time, where it's like the same cool looking thing. And I like designs that are a little flawed and a little like imperfect, because that's part of the personality. And so I like committing to like simple, absurd ideas and just exploring them and not feeling any concern that it would work. Like just, you know, being like, well, this one lady's made out of vines that's like holding a bunch of tombstones together. And even though that's like an ambitious thing to be like, go build that, like I never wavered from it. I was like, I'm just going to go make that thing and it's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes them more memorable. Yeah. And obviously the one that I loved is the fact that you brought Robert home as Zombie Cop, or I presume you were bringing back Biocop in a way. Is that a hint towards maybe you're bringing Biocop back in some form?
Well, in the end credits, he's officially Biocop.
Oh, right. On IMDb, it said Zombie Cop Vincent or something like that.
We got to update that IMDb because, I put Zombie Cop in the script just to kind of keep it on the down low.
Right.
I really want to like spoil this because, so many people have been requesting a Biocop movie. And it was actually a thing I was working on for a while, but I like was having trouble cracking that concept. And so I figured like, I'll just throw him in this movie, see, and use it as a way to like gauge interest in him. And if people are excited about it, then like maybe I'll.
Well, I hope so, because it was one of my. He was only there for like 5-10 minutes, but I was just cracking up in laughter all the way through his scenes. He's just brilliant in the film. Yeah.
Oh, it's great. Well, I'm glad you're one of the fans that picked up on it. That's awesome.
Cool.
The ultimate evil has awoken.
So just to wrap up, I mean, obviously you've got this coming out now. Is there anything you can tell us about what you plan to do in the future? I mean, obviously you said you'd like to do a biocop if people are interested. Would there maybe any interest in a Psycho Goreman sequel or spin-off or something like with the other characters? Because you said that you've got so many characters there that you kind of teased. And also, can you tell us anything about the Day of the Dead TV series that you've been working on?
Well, as far as like stuff I'm working on right now, I'm just doing effects over at Masters Effects. I'm working on 2 shows right now: Umbrella Academy season 3 and The Boys season 3.
All right.
Effects and prosthetics for that. As far as like follow-ups for PG, I'm very interested in continuing this universe. I had so much fun playing around in it, and yeah, it's entirely possible we'll be seeing more PG adventures down the road. I just want to wait to gauge reactions and see how people respond to the movie, and if they, are clamoring for a follow up, I'll definitely get something going. And then as far as Day of the Dead goes, yeah, I shot 4 episodes of that last year. I won't go into details, but shooting a TV show during a pandemic presents a special set of challenges. But I had a lot of fun shooting it. I can't really give details about plot or anything.
Of course not, yeah.
But I can say that the zombie effects were all done by Masters Effects, the company that I work for, and I worked very closely with them on designing these zombie characters. So that's definitely something to be excited about. And yeah, I had a lot of fun shooting it. I can't wait for people to see it.
No, that's brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time, Steve. I appreciate it, especially on the weekend. And I wish you the best of luck with the film when it comes out next week, and hope to speak to you again sometime soon.
Yeah, right on, man. Good.
All right, take care. All the best then. Cheers then.
There's a new god in town, and his name? Psycho Goreman. It was nice meeting you.
It would be nicer if you were dead.
All right, bye.